Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Spaceballs. Hello, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. 'Tis I, Colton Robertson, and today we continue our 52-year journey through film. We've done 1970, 71, all the way through the 70s, all the way through the 80s, up to 1987, where today we are discussing Spaceballs. I'm joined by Tavarus Pennington. What's up, homie?
Hey, we're living. We made it here.
You know, it's crazy. I didn't realize we could time travel like this.
I didn't either.
It's 25 years in the past. It's 1987.
Yeah.
But it's also January 11th. And it's also April 29th. So,
what?
Go fuck yourself. That's why. Hello, Joseph George. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me out.
Sorry to make it so confusing for everyone from the top of the pod. No, it's just that we record quite in advance for this project. That's all. Just because, if it catches up, it's going to be real stressful. We can't miss a week after a certain point. So we like to get it done and recorded with. Sorry to break the fourth wall for everybody there, but thus is the way of things. We're talking 1987 Spaceballs today, and it's something to behold. It's quite the flick. Not in a good way, but not quite in a bad way.
Yeah. Of the movies on our list, this is definitely one of the most out there movies. This one does not belong with the rest, and the closest one would be MASH, I guess.
But MASH is even far more serious than this movie is.
This is I don't know, this is what it was supposed to be. This is what they were going for.
It's a parody.
Easily put together. Didn't really care. They were just going for it. It was just supposed to be funny and fun to watch. And honestly,
it succeeds.
It was funny and fun to watch.
Let's lay the groundwork for the people. Spaceballs, released on June 24th, 1987, directed by Mel Brooks and written by Mel Brooks, along with Thomas Meehan and Ronnie Graham. So Mel Brooks hasn't aged the best, according to society as a whole, with good reason, I would argue. He has made some egregious jokes and said some terrible things along the way. And it is impressive that in a movie like this, movie didn't age quite as bad as I had anticipated it to. There were moments. There were certainly moments where it was like, okay, well, that's not great. That doesn't look good. But it was like, okay, it could have gone real bad real fast, and I don't think it quite reached that point. Tavarus, had you ever seen this movie before? Have you ever watched Spaceballs?
No, I had not. Spaceballs was not. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't come across my palate. I guess.
I can understand that too. We got a couple first timers here, and I've watched this movie since I was a young lad. In fact, it was the first time I've watched this in a while, probably since I was a young lad.
This seems like a movie for young lads.
Yes,
specifically
it is.
young lads.
Specifically young lads, and that's the thing too. Is what's unbelievable about it, if I remember correctly, is that it's rated PG. Which is a fascinating little footnote next to this movie, because I believe a fuck is thrown out at one point, which I don't think you get in PG movies anymore. We had a lot of references to sex and like a pretty much direct on-screen showing of President Scroob giving head to a couple ladies. I was just like, if I remember correctly, this is a PG movie. No, yeah, it's definitely our rating system has evolved over the years, to be sure, and I think this being once accessible to young men makes a lot of sense on the whole, and as you look at men on the whole.
That may contribute to the amount of absurd seriousness that seems to pervade because it's the movie is obviously aware of itself. It's aware of its
to a very grave degree.
Like
there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in this movie.
Yeah, it's able to. I don't know, like they're able to treat it with an air of seriousness on camera that like adds to the humor, but at the same time makes you think like, but who funded this? Like,
I gotta imagine it was just
money.
Mel Brooks, like he was basically making whatever the fuck he wanted. Like that's just produced by Mel Brooks. Like he made a lot of movies, and he made them. He directed them. He wrote them. He produced them. That was his shit, And he was gonna make the jokes he wanted to make, and people had to sign on. But what kind of like stood out to me about this movie in particular is the fucking cast is actually nice. For like a comedy, you got John Candy, Rick Moranis, Bill Pullman, and I'd seen Daphne Zuniga at points. If you've watched One Tree Hill, she is Brooke's mother in that show, which is funny because I hadn't watched this since I'd seen One Tree Hill, and I was like, holy shit. I've seen her as like a 50-some-odd woman now, but yeah, I was like, holy shit, look at that.
As like I had no idea what I was really getting into. I knew it was a Star Wars parody. That's pretty much it. Is that it was a parody of Star Wars. That's all I was going in with. This was my first viewing, completely. Didn't watch it as a young lad.
Virgins.
Yeah, did not watch it as a young lad.
Virgin alarm.
Yes.
Cue the virgin alarm.
Yep.
Spaceballs virgin alarm.
But I don't know. It surprised me. Like I had no idea of like the fourth wall breaks. I didn't think any of that would happen. Which were all pretty funny, and they actually had like for the story, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's pretty much a rip-off of Star Wars, so I guess how bad could it really be? Ripping off, if your source material is already great.
It's basically if you took that one episode of Rick and Morty where it's like a Star Mort Return of the Jedi or something like that. It's like one of the season finales, and they spoof the Death Star. It's like if you made the writers of that super fucking dumb. And then slid them into 1987.
Yeah, this is so it's 10 years after Star Wars, and I want like.
Well, and and there are several references in this movie to beyond Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Trek.
We got Indiana Jones reference with the Temple of Doom, and we watched Aliens just last week, and at the very end we get a reference to the alien that pops out of the people's chest. Of course, he starts singing. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Which I mean, if the aliens did that, we'd probably appreciate them a little bit more.
Watching this movie, I was always taking myself out and being like, okay, so if I'm back in 87 in a theater watching this right now, like a theater comedy is way different than sitting at home comedy. Like you laugh more at the theater than you do at home. Just because it's, like, awkward if you don't laugh at the theater, But, like, I'm not saying that's what happened with this movie, but, like, you just automatically laugh more at the theater, I feel.
There's something to the idea that when, like, in viewing a comedy and in viewing funny content in general, scrolling Twitter, scrolling TikTok, Vines, whatever, YouTube videos and stuff, you're gonna have more fun and laugh more with more people because there's more people who are laughing at what you're laughing at, and therefore the camaraderie builds upon the funny. And it's like, we all think this is fucking hilarious. And I think Spaceballs is I watched it alone, right? I laughed out loud like maybe a couple times, and I let out a couple nose exhales. But it didn't have me in uproarious laughter like it did when I was 11.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe it was a little different because I don't remember any of it. So there were just some things where I'm just like, "Ha, what the fuck?"
Yeah, exactly. No, that's mostly it. It's just like, this is so fucking dumb. Like anytime I laughed, I was just like, "Ha, this is so stupid." Like whenever she turns into the giant maid, the mega maid. They're them jamming the sensors.
Yeah, Claire was like in the room when I was watching it, but she like was just like on her phone. But at the beginning, you know, she was kind of paying attention, and I was just like, "Oh, is this interesting?" She's just like, "I mean, it's just dumb." And I was like,
"No, yeah, like
that's a response to my question."
In the 53 movies we have here, 1970 to 2022, we don't even have a 2022 movie picked out yet, and I know for a fact it's not as dumb as this. It is the far and away the dumbest movie on our list, and there won't be a close second.
And there's something to that, you know.
I wanted to get an absurdly bad movie in here, like a movie's so bad it's fun to watch. You know, like those are fun movies to watch. You know what I'm saying? And that's what makes this fun, is the fact that it is so god awful. At basically the entire way through.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like it gets so like it gets so concerned with itself that you realize that you're like on this very deep, complex, ever-shifting journey with these characters, and you struggle to give a fuck. But you're also like, I'm not supposed to really care, am I?
No, you're not. You're not. You're absolutely not. No, because like I'm like, man, I really don't want them to suck the air off of Druidia, but like, what if they do? You know, like what? Okay.
Kind of the whole time I was just like, okay, so she's obviously Leia. I was like making the comparisons to Star Wars, and I was like, all right, well, this is obviously Han and Chewie, but then I'm like, wait a minute, oh, he's just also Luke too, you know? So that's cool.
He's an amalgamation.
Yeah, he's just the guy. And I don't know, I was just always going back and forth between Star Wars and this, but like, some of my favorite moments were like even just the beginning where the ship just dragged on.
Oh, that was amazing.
For like a good 2 minutes. Like I literally like just started laughing. I'm like, oh my god, like it actually is still going. Like I don't know. It was so like that's basically the entire movie. It's so dumb that it becomes funny. Like it's basically an SNL skit the whole way through.
It really is.
Like all this is. But
the only moments where it's like, okay, this hasn't aged to the finest, and never really was appropriate. But there's a show I watch, Harley Quinn, DC's Harley Quinn, the animated series. It's written by a couple of Jewish guys, and they make a lot of Jewish jokes in the like self-deprecating against anti-Semitic jokes, and you get a lot of that in Spaceballs. And I've noted that, like many people, regardless of whether or not the writer is Jewish or not, this is hurtful, and it probably shouldn't be done. And the whole Jewish princess thing, and Schwartz, may the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah, just put those.
Yep.
Together now.
Yeah.
Just now. So
no, and that's the thing about like anti-Semitic comedy. Often, like, it just like goes right over most people's heads because it's just like a lot of people don't even think about it. But Mel Brooks is half Jewish and stuff, so like there's also like he makes a lot more Jewish jokes than he does, you know, when they're combing the desert and the black dudes have a pick, and he goes, "We ain't found shit," which is also a little problematic in essence.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, man, that's crazy to think that 87 is like, me when I hear like 87, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, that's just like 20 years ago. You know, but that's like
35 years ago.
Yeah, that's like, no, you got to go 2000 and then, you know, like you got to go past 2000. Like, I don't know, it's weird. Like whenever I think of years and how long ago they are, like I always think it's less than it is for some reason.
I'm with you. No, like because, I mean, earlier in the episode even, I called 87 25 years ago, and I was completely wrong, and I'm just not realizing it. It is 35. I'm 22. I turned 22 yesterday. I wasn't born in 90.
Right. I was born in 2000. The year is always my age if it's just been my birthday.
Yeah.
Like, that's so easy, but I still struggle. If the year just goes behind 2000, I just can't comprehend it in my brain that I have to add another 20 to it or whatever. But,
there were, on the whole though, it was lacking those jokes more than it wasn't, which I was pleasantly surprised to find. Like, there were a lot of jokes that were just straight up like, "This ring hurts your balls," which I thought was hilarious. Like, "I'm going to shoot you in the dick," and that's just like the whole thing.
Yeah, no, they did just kind of. There were some parts where I was just like, kind of like not be paying attention. And then, like, you look at the screen and there's just, like, a laser beam to some guy's crotch, and you're just like, that was an interesting creative choice.
And then the rest of the movie, all the guys, anytime Darth Helmet gets mad, they cover their balls.
Yeah.
The whole time. And I like that we clearly had our, like, President Scroobs, our Emperor archetype. Dark Helmet, obviously, is our Darth Vader archetype. And then the Colonel Sanders. Is our Tarkin archetype, which I thought was hilarious. Like, and I forgot that all three of them are kind of represented on the quote unquote Imperial side, which is just it's just funny. But Rick Moranis had a run in the 80s and the 90s that he got a degree of credit for back then, but I don't think he deserves some more credit today, I think.
What's that run?
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that whole thing, the Little Shop of Horrors, Spaceballs, just a lot of great comedies that he was a part of, and that are just kind of on a whole appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in Ghostbusters. Yeah, he was.
Ghostbusters is kind of like that would be an interesting comparison to Spaceballs for me, because Ghostbusters almost seems like a parody of itself, and at some points, like its humor is so just corny, but like it's able to. I don't know. Spaceballs is able to be more forward about how I don't know. Like, it has this vision for itself that you understand that it's failing to meet, which makes it funny. You know, like, it has this
like
idea.
it's trying, like, in the movie it seems like they're trying to make this the next Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it knows it's not the next Star Wars, and therein it is funny, because they're like, get the Spaceballs merch, get all this, check out yogurt, check out, like...
But, like, if they, like, I bet you they probably, I don't know, how famous was this movie? Like, do you think they made that merch? I guess they would have had to make the merch for it to be in the movie.
Yeah, like I'd say there was definitely
sold
space.
The merch?
I don't think they sold a lot of it, but I think they sold merch. Like, I'm sure they moved some units. It actually did win an award.
Won an award.
Yes, it did. It won a pretty big one, if I recall. It was no. Here, hold on. Let me find it. I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah,
it was a big one. It was a big one. Oh yes, the Stinker Award for Worst Picture.
There you go. Wait, where do they have that? They should have that at the Oscars.
The Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, 1987.
So
for a whole fucking award show dedicated to bad movies, this won the worst one.
The worst. They're like, and the worst all around performance goes to Spaceballs.
Yeah, it was just overall just terrible. It actually has a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb though, which is just hilarious. Yeah.
Wow, I that's ridiculous. I knew it was going to be rough when I saw that Spaceballs was free with ads on YouTube. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, this is going to be rough. Box office, it made $22 million.
Yeah, that's what I was. Well, I see 38 million. Maybe that's the adjusted.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is, but 38 million gross domestic. Oh, the budget was 22 million, so it grossed 38 million, which is
yeah. Look at them go. Pretty good, you know. I like You know that Robin Hood movie, Men in Tights, like the other like kind of parody like movie?
Yeah.
It's like there's just other movies that are similar to that. That one made $30 million at the box office. So this was like more successful than like that parody movie, which I guess is like
and it's
close
funny,
example.
you'll see that like over time these parody movies have lost the star power. Like they had John Candy, and like that was a big comedic actor back in the day. And I mean, Rick Moranis, he was on at the height of his career pretty much in '87, or was about to hit the height of his career anyway. And you're just not going to get actors like that doing these sorts of movies anymore. And I think there was like a Hunger Games spoof a few years back, like the Starving Games or something like that. And there's been like Twilight, like vampire shit. That's just like, it's just obviously doing what Spaceballs did to Star Wars and trying to do it to their own movie franchises, but it's like none of us really want to see it.
Have you watched Resurrections yet?
I have not, but you guys can go ahead.
I mean, I'd say that's like the closest thing to a parody movie that we have, like that's just new. Like it's the only thing that actors would like sign up for now is like a movie that still has a really good story behind it, but is still kind of spoofing or parodizing, the previous franchise. Trying not to spoil anything.
No, I mean, I've heard
to
that
get the idea. Like it's not a parody really, but it sort of is. You get that idea.
Well, I saw a tweet a couple weeks back that was like it was like Star Wars be like it has Star Wars characters say things that only Star Wars fans would say. And then it was like the Wachowski sisters. The characters in The Matrix have watched The Matrix.
Yeah. Or it's just a video game. I guess that's in the trailer, that the Matrix was just a video game that everyone played, and, Keanu starred in somehow, that he was the creator of the game, and everyone knows it's a really weird movie, but it's really fun. And like, I hope that, like, if there are any movies like that are going to come out to be parody, like this format works a lot better for me than like a Spaceballs format, where it's like just super thrown together, and it's just like, it's just kind of like serotonin, like to the brain. That's what they're just trying to do.
But it doesn't even really succeed, because like I'll tell you, I didn't enjoy the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, if anything, I was just kind of like, man, an hour left, huh? All right. And if anything, like it does. Part of the reason I was like, okay, I will do this. It's an hour and a half. It's not any longer than that. And I'm glad it's not, because it just would have been something else at that point. But I did the fucking spoof of the characters, and the point where Princess Vespa has the headphones on that are Leia's buns, but they're not. They're just headphones. She takes them right off. And there were multiple points. Like, did you catch at one point where they had like a headshot of Princess Vespa on the screen, and in the corner it says Vespa, Princess, implying that her first name is Princess. It's not even like, it's not a title. Her name is just Princess Vespa.
I didn't see that, no.
Which is just fucking funny.
Yeah, I just thought it was like hilarious, because I was looking up on what to watch it on, and like I saw the YouTube logo, and I was like, oh, like YouTube TV, maybe, and then I click it, and it's just straight YouTube. Like it's just on YouTube, 0 ads, just for free. Like it just made it even more funny. While I'm watching this, I'm like,
nobody's even making money from me right now.
Like I whenever I check the time to see how much is left, I'm reminded, oh yeah, I'm just watching a YouTube video right now. This is basically a YouTube video. Like,
it's basically a YouTube movie.
Like so I don't know. The whole idea of the movie is
Griselda
hilarious,
Films.
but I'm very curious on how this is going to rank, like in our
ratings.
Like,
system.
yeah, because it's like all over the place, man.
I'm not gonna. I anticipate it being pretty low. And but I am interested if it's lower than our lowest. I wonder if we have a new all-time low here.
I think this has to be the lowest. Like just going into it, that's my prediction.
Well, it will be.
But there is something to it's funny, and thinking back on it, I sympathize with you. I got like an hour through, and I'm like, fuck, man, how long is this? And I'm checking. I'm like, geez, 30 more minutes? Like, really? Like, I feel like I've been watching this for at least 2 hours.
They just got the air back in that hole, and we got 30 more minutes.
Yeah. It just struggles to hold your attention. That's my only true critique of it. You really have to be willing to invest in some dumb shit to like be entertained throughout. Otherwise, it's just kind of like I think I get it.
Yeah. It's like
15
right,
minutes in.
Okay. And like I get this now. We can go ahead and.
I actually recently watched The Starving Games, and probably a worse spoof. Much worse spoof.
No, that's the thing, is that like it does deserve credit because there isn't a spoof that quite successfully does what Spaceballs does.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, Scary Movie, but that's kind of a different realm because it's like a spoof of horror movies in general, not a specific franchise. Scary Movie does it pretty well. I'd probably, but Spaceballs is right there with it. Like. Scary Movie is ceaselessly dumb. That's all it is. It's just dumb.
It's just dumb. And like, Starving Games was dumb, but like in a modern context, which seems dumber than like what dumb was in the 80s at least. Like I think people have gotten dumber since the 80s.
I think that's probably
they've gotten smarter in a lot of ways. They've also gotten dumber. So.
Well, and I think it's probably like in an entertainment sense. Like we just like we're kind of past spoof movies.
Yeah.
Like this exists in 87 and it hasn't been touched since 87 because it wasn't going to come. And it makes perfect sense that the Scary Movie franchise was the early 2000s. Like the early 2000s is basically a parody of every other time in history.
The early 2000s is something to behold.
It's such a weird fucking period of time that's going to be like pretty much non-significant for most things. You guys hear about CDs? Man. That shit's crazy. Oh, they're gone.
Like a Game Boy, a GameCube.
I mean, maybe we get the revolutionary handheld playable device like PSP.
I guess the iPhone came out in 2007. That's pretty big.
I wouldn't argue that's early 2000s.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm thinking like 2001 to 2005. Like that range, that's pretty insignificant. I mean, there are obviously advancements being made and stuff, and like we have to take steps to get where we're going, but like none of them stuck.
That's true. Yeah, even like music. I'm trying to think of like the music of the early 2000s, and like, I guess,
man, I can't think of shit. Claire's been on the Yin Yang Twins. Man, all right. Now, yeah, how about some Chumbawamba? Is that early 2000s or is that 90s? I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're gonna keep me down.
The early 2000s got cartoons locked down. 90s and early 2000s, they got cartoons on lock. And what?
That's the cartoon era.
The saving grace of the early 2000s, the cartoons, I'd say. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and we got a few good movies that we'll get to eventually with the early 2000s. But nevertheless, we're in the 80s. We're in 87 specifically. And what's interesting about this movie when it comes to like the time frame is that in terms of production value, the way it looks, the way it feels, I'd say this is about 10 to 15 years behind its time. It's like, wow, this doesn't look nearly as good as anything else in the 80s. And I know that's because the budget was not nearly as good as, like, say, Blade Runner.
But the budget was still, what, you said $20 million?
$22 million.
$22 million? In 1987 dollars.
God damn.
That's a lot of money. Like,
Yeah, like paying the people involved.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah, this probably just ultimately does reflect poorly on Mel Gibson. Was that his name?
Mel Brooks, but Mel Gibson is hilarious.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Gibson.
Who's Mel Gibson?
Mel Gibson's another actor. Braveheart. He's been in some other shit too. He's probably a lot more culturally significant than Mel Brooks.
That's probably
for real. But he's also like huge QAnon guy. Mel Gibson is a huge QAnon guy. He like speaks at like QAnon rallies and stuff.
Holy shit!
He was probably all for January 6th. Yeah, he was like the main guy in Lethal Weapon.
Oh shit!
All the Lethal Weapon movies. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
No, Mel Brooks did like Blazing Saddles, for context, which is like one of the most outrageously racist movies of all time.
Blazing Saddles. That's just a terrible name for a creative project.
Yeah, it was a pretty big deal. It was a spoof of like a Western.
Mel Gibson did?
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks did that
also
as well.
Mel Brooks.
Okay.
It's in his vein, you know, comedy, like a spoof of Western movies. It had Gene Wilder in it.
So Mel Brooks, Gene Wilder. Holy shit.
Who was a pretty great actor.
Yeah, like honestly. I don't know why, yeah. I couldn't decide. The only thing I can think of, like, the closest thing to a spoof I can think of in modern times is maybe like, I mean, this isn't really a spoof, though. It's just straight up satire, which Don't Look Up. Like, it gave me those sorts of vibes at times. But the absurd shit that happened in Don't Look Up was, like...
feasible to a degree.
Feasible, calculated, like, there was a subtext there that made sense. Like...
And there were times where I was like, are they trying to get at something
during
Spaceballs? And then, like, they would, like... But it was like one or two jokes, and it was like, then it was gone, and it was like, no, they're definitely not.
No, they just did it because they thought it was funny. That was it. That was the only reason.
Yeah, because there was a point where like President Scrooge goes, "What am I supposed to do? I can't take action. I'm a president. Like I don't make decisions." And I was like, maybe they're trying to get at something. And then there was points where like the Mega Maid started looking like the Statue of Liberty. So I was like, are they saying something about the imperial nature of the United States of America and the statue? Nah, probably not. She just kind of looked like the Statue of Liberty. And that was kind of part of the joke.
Yeah, this movie is, I don't know. It's good if you just, I don't know. It's kind of good as just like a background movie. To kind of like go in and out of and be like, oh, yeah, that's dumb. That's kind of funny. All right. But like,
scroll on Twitter.
I don't know. It wasn't like terrible. Like it wasn't like I hated watching this movie.
No, it was tolerable at the very least.
Yeah, like, yeah. Like I'll watch it again, I think.
Yeah, it's one that you like. There's a reason I showed it to you guys. It's that kind of movie. It's like, guys, you gotta watch this. This is so dumb.
Yeah, like you have to see it. Like if you have not, you have to.
You have to watch how dumb it is.
Yeah, you gotta know.
But I mean, like, frankly, there's not a ton to say about Spaceballs if we're being for real. And with that, I think we might be ready for the ratings. If y'all don't have too much else to say about, like the critical critiques of Spaceballs.
I'm trying to think of which rating would be the easiest to start with.
I don't think and you know what?
Usually we start with the enjoyment rating.
I'm cool with starting there. Let's start there.
But I don't know how I enjoyed this movie. Like,
there's a couple things that usually factor into my enjoyment of the movie, and that is like how much it kept me, like how much I was like I want to keep watching this. I want to know what happens in the next couple minutes. And I didn't have that with this movie. I'd go pretty middle of the road for my enjoyment of this movie, and probably 2.5, 2.5 out of 5, maybe lower, but maybe I could see it in the 2 to 3 range, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I got at least 2 laughs, so I have to give it at least two.
Yeah,
2. That's
2.
what I did.
Okay, that I was leaning more towards the lower side too. I just wanted to know,
it's just like enjoyment is something that, like, I want to walk away from a movie having thoughts I didn't previously have about what I was I was watching. Yeah, and it didn't seriously explore anything at all. It was meant to. It's a background movie, you know, like it's just a series of absurd things that occur.
And obviously enjoyment is inherently objective. Like it's subjective. It's entirely up to you. It's not objective. You have to like this fucking movie. No, it's like, cuz it is funny, and nostalgically there is a degree of enjoyment I get out of it, but it's not high. it's not high. Right. I'm leaning more towards the 2.2 to 2.5 range now, not 2 to 3.
The way I'm thinking of it is MASH received a 2.5 in the enjoyment scale.
I like this probably less than MASH.
And I was trying to think if I liked it more or less than MASH. And like the only thing this movie had on MASH is that I laughed more in for Spaceballs. Like there were moments where it actually made me laugh that I wasn't expecting. And that's like in this day and age, to make someone actually laugh and not just have that internal laugh or the, nose exhale, it's kind of impressive, but like on the real, MASH was just kind of a better movie to watch because it actually like had something of a story that you somewhat cared about.
Yeah. And here's the thing though, is that like, again, I'd save that critique for more towards like how it is as a movie. Like, But if that plays into your enjoyment, which it clearly does, I mean, you like to watch a better movie, then that's a part of it. The only thing that made me go, maybe it's on the upside of 2.5. Maybe it's above MASH, is that it is a Star Wars parody. And I like me some Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? And like that's kind of like, that was the only reason I was like a little bit higher on this movie. Like if this isn't a Star Wars parody, A, this movie doesn't exist. B, it's a 1.
Yeah, I feel like 2 to 2.5 is where I'm sitting, but I feel like I should give it a 2.5 because it actually, there were some enjoyable moments. Like the enjoyable moments in Spaceballs are more enjoyable than the most enjoyable moments in MASH.
True.
I'm with a very terrible way to say that, probably.
No, I followed you. Followed you.
But yeah, I feel like it should at least tie MASH. It shouldn't be below it, in my opinion. I'm not comfortable putting it above or below, really.
I get you.
How I feel.
Then I'm right there with you then. I thought 2.5 initially, and if we can, I mean, like we could adjust it for like 2.4 or 2.45, like essentially on the same, to compensate for the 2 to 1 aspect here.
I'm
Maybe
down.
a 2.4.
Comfortable.
Just a slight decrease from MASH.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting convo. How, for the genre,
for being
as a spoof movie, how many spoof movies do you know? Whenever you think of a spoof movie,
I mean, that was part of our conversation.
I'm assuming the first one that pops in your head is Spaceballs, like a spoof movie. And to me, but usually when we give like a movie, like in the genre, like a 5 out of 5, we say it's like the gold standard
of their category.
Of the category. And this doesn't really feel like, I don't know, is
I'd
there
argue,
really a gold standard for a parody movie, Like,
I would argue that, like I said earlier, the Scary Movie franchise is better than Spaceballs. And therein it can't be super high. Like, and let's go straight up as a comedy. Like, forget parody, forget spoof. It's ultimately what it's doing is telling you jokes. Is putting funny situations in front of you and trying to make you laugh. And how well did it do that? And like we've said throughout, got a couple out of us, but it didn't make us laugh uproariously. And therefore, I would again go pretty middle of the road. And this time, Oh, I don't think I even want to give it a 3. Maybe a 3. But like 2.5 to 3 again, like I'm in that range again.
I mean, I think I'm okay giving it a higher rating just because it does sound, even if it isn't of gold standard, that seems like a odd valuation to put on spoof movies to begin with. It is, in a way, it is par excellence, I guess, for spoofs, if that makes sense. And this is reflected in the fact that it has even made the list, right? Like, it stands the test of time. People will remember Spaceballs. And it is a daring and bold addition to the cinematic universe of Star Wars. If you want to give it all of that credit.
There you go.
But it you know, I'd be willing to give it a 3, I think.
Okay, that's more where I was leaning. I was on the high side. I'll give it 3 out of 5 for comedy too.
I'm right there too. Yeah, I think 3's fair. That's what we gave MASH as well. For the genre, I guess.
That makes me almost want to go maybe a little heavier on it, like 3.1. Like because I think it was a little bit. I didn't like it as much as MASH, but the funny situations in Spaceballs were funnier than situations in MASH. So I'd be willing to give it that little extra bump.
We'll give it the bump. We'll give it the little bump. So now it's like kind of tied. Now, as a film, how did this do?
Not good.
Yeah.
No, this is it. This is going to be the one and only that I think straight up gets a 1 out of 5.
I mean, yeah.
It's bad. Like, it's not good, and that is the point. So does it get credit for that? It can't. It can't. It's just bad. And again, that's what they're trying to do. So there's really nothing wrong with it. But I thought you just hit a random dab. You were sneezing over there.
Yeah, no, it's a spoof movie. It's a 1-star movie for sure because, well, it seems like Mel Brooks wanted it to be, and that was funny to him to spend $22 million on a movie that was like obnoxiously horrible.
You're right, and yeah, it's a 1 out of 5. It's a 1 out of 5 in terms of how good of a movie it is, and that will be our only 1 out of 5 if I had to guess.
Maybe
we got to meet a pretty bad movie.
Yeah, and I feel like most of the movies you put on here were intentional. Like, other than this one, were
pretty intentionally good.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're like, I'll rewatch Spaceballs and be like, it wasn't a bad cinematic outing.
You know what? Maybe it was a 5 out of 5. No. So what's that round us out to with a 1 out of 5 overall as a film? A 3.1 out of 5.
Biggest loser.
Biggest loser.
The new biggest loser is Spaceballs. It is a 2.17 out of 5. MASH being a 2.67. Almost at basically a half point higher. An exact half point higher, actually. And yeah, that really those are the only 2 movies that are in that range at all. The only other 2 movies that get into a 3, there's only 3 movies. And those are Taxi Driver and Scarface. So even in the company that it's in down low, it's
far and away below those.
Yeah. So it makes sense that it's at the bottom, a 2.17, and it does kill the month of April. Its average rating went down to a 3.91. It is the lowest month now. That's okay. Spaceballs just so happened to come out in this year. Sorry, April.
Well, I mean, and let's be real. Up to this point, April was all right, but it wasn't our best month by any means. It wasn't like, I mean, we start with Scarface?
Mm-hmm. Scarface, Terminator, Breakfast Club, Aliens, Spaceballs.
I don't know. That's a pretty strong 3 in the middle there, huh?
Yeah, Terminator, Breakfast Club, Aliens that was a good run. Those were 3 pretty great movies.
Yeah.
But I mean,
being sandwiched by 2 of our bottom 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's okay.
Rough.
But Spaceballs is a movie that everyone should see.
That's funny because hearing that Scarface is in like the same bottom 4 as Spaceballs is hilarious.
Yeah, Spaceballs is in very, very strange company on this list. It just doesn't belong.
No, and that was That was part of the thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was part of the appeal here. I wasn't just like, you know what was the best movie of 87? Spaceballs. Nah, this movie's bad, and I wanted to talk a good bad movie. And that's ultimately why Spaceballs made it, especially coming off of like 10 episodes ago, we did the Star Wars live commentary. So it's like a fun little, here we are now, separated from Star Wars a few weeks, talking Spaceballs. And we've seen a lot of sci-fi the last few weeks. You know, Aliens, Terminator, going back to Star Wars. We had Blade Runner in between there. Like, we've seen some sci-fi. So getting a spoof.
Well, this will be a nice reprieve because I feel like if I remember correctly, the movies we're getting into now are going to be a little more intense.
We've got a serious vein coming up. You know, next week is 1988, which at the moment we will be discussing the anime film My Neighbor Totoro, which this is a couple back to back where I was like, let's get out there with it. Let's do something new. We haven't really done. I don't think there's another anime movie on the list. And I wanted to kind of appeal to all genres here, and I was like, you know, let's fucking do this. And then 89, I believe, is Dead Poets Society, and the 90s Goodfellas, and like, yeah, we're getting into some real shit coming up here soon. So Spaceballs was a nice little breather before we get into that. But yeah, so that left us with what, a 2.17. 2.17 out of 5 stars.
I think that feels right.
No, yeah, and that's the thing about this rating system. It ultimately always does. It always works itself out. And I don't think we have another 2 that are separated by a half point. Like this is that substantially lower than anything else. Nothing else has been separated by a full half point. At least not in terms of direct ranking.
You know, my idea for a spoof?
What's that?
Kool-Aid Man spoof. Kool-Aid Man MCU spoof. I was watching a YouTube video. The Kool-Aid Man is canon in the MCU. I kid you the fuck not.
Like, as a
hero? There are comics from the, 80s with the Kool-Aid Man. And he has powers. And he referenced Spider-Man.
Can't be a hero. That man's a villain. Hey, they all do that, though.
And I'm just like, why don't they drop the Kool-Aid Man in the MCU? Like, that, there's got to be someone out there who knows that. Like, if I saw the YouTube video.
Multiverse of Madness is going to fuck our heads up, man. I'm telling you, Winnie the Pooh making an appearance.
It was
Kool-Aid Man making an appearance.
The video,
Winnie the Pooh riding the Kool-Aid Man making an appearance.
The video I was watching mentioned that one of the Kool-Aid Man's seen powers has been the ability to create portals between dimensions. So that could be useful.
Kool-Aid Man's a Nexus being. Holy shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never knew. No, but that'd be a great idea for a spoof. I mean, and I can't believe it hasn't been done. Kool-Aid just... They need a revival, and what better way than a spoof movie?
What better way?
Get Mel Brooks to sign on his 95-year-old ass.
If they're really if the Marvel's really wanting to experiment with their movie formula, as we were talking about.
We saw WandaVision. We raise you Kool-Aid Man.
We raise you Kool-Aid Man.
WandaVision, okay, cool. But are they the Kool-Aid Man? Is the Falcon and Winter Soldier the Kool-Aid Man?
None of them are the Kool-Aid Man. But yeah.
What a way to end a Spaceballs podcast.
It was going to be absurd. It had to be. But yeah, with that concludes the Penny Bloom podcast. It was I, Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. And I was also joined by one Tavarus Pennington. Thank you very much, homie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I respect the effort for the timing on that one.
I had to stretch it just a little bit.
Yeah,
nobody even noticed. Nobody even noticed until now. But if you would, head to patreon.com/CoroBloom where we got a whole plethora of content. And before this very episode, in fact, we recorded an episode on a bunch of current event shit. I believe I'm going to call that one I Love College by Asher Roth. Little reference there. And if you go to Patreon, that will actually be back like 5 months in the backlog. So go ahead and find it. But yeah, go to Twitter, follow at PennyBloomPod, where I usually update which movie is coming next, and if next week's was to change as of now, and it will probably stick. Next week's is 1988's My Neighbor Totoro, and I plan on that being the case. However, if it were to change, you would find out on Twitter at PennyBloomPod, and then also follow on Instagram at PennyBloomPodcast. And remember, peace, love, and bloom, and may the Schwartz be with you.